Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao Pizza podcast with top industry leaders in the warehousing, logistics, supply chain business with a holistic twist. And today I'm here with my friend John Corcoran of Rise 25, and he's going to be interviewing me. Go check out the Rise 25 website at www.rise25.com. They specialize in helping clients reach and contribute to their top 200 business relationships and strategic partners.
Mark, I'm so excited to be here with you. We're going to be talking about your expertise, something you've been working on for 30 years or so. You have if you've ever been into a Costco and you've seen these massive structures, those are the types of structures that support millions of pounds of weight, and you don't want them to come collapsing down. And Mark does an amazing job of engineering those types of systems. So we're going to be talking about how those work, the different types of systems. Of course, this episode first is brought to you by Specialized Storage Systems, Inc., which, Mark, this is your company. You've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades, and you provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically, if you have a warehouse that needs racks, shelving, carts, conveyors, mezzanines, you help with the design, the engineering, the installation, the inspection, the repairs, even permitting, all that kind of stuff. And so if you want to learn more about that, go to specialracks.com. You can also call them at 707-732-3892. You can also email Mark Hiddleson at AOL.com. Yes, he still does use an AOL. They still exist somehow. You might be the last one to turn off the lights on that email account. But Mark, it's so great to have you here. Let's dive into this. So, it's become so much more important in recent years. You see massive Amazon warehousing, cropping up all over the country. Of course, everyone's been to a Costco or a Sam's Club. So logistics, e-commerce, supply chain, all these different systems have to build warehouse storage systems. And you're an expert in how to build these different systems. And we're going to break it down, the different types of systems, and specifically the different types of racks that make up the components that build this giant ecosystem. So give me an overview first of the different types of racks that you work with on a daily basis, and then we'll go into them individually.
Okay, so starting out with the ones you mentioned in Costco are called pallet racks. And so we'll talk a little about that. That's kind of the first lowest hanging fruit. And then a lot of our clients use drive-in racks if they've got higher volumes with more pallets of the same SKU. And then pushback racks are another way to get more out of your space. All of these systems, they're designed to get more out of your existing space, because right now, with the cost of real estate, and it's not going anywhere. So what we do is help people optimize their space. So we'll talk about select rack, which is just regular pallet rack, and drive-in racks, which is a little more dense, and then pushback racks, which is a dynamic system because the pallets roll forward using gravity. And then we'll get into, I wanted to talk about rack-supported mezzanines if we have time, because that's a great way to maximize space. And then also case flow, and finally cantilever, which is a little different. Cantilever is more for lumber industries or people storing longer, like extruded metals or things that are stored 10, 20 feet long in cantilever racks and really heavy loads. Cantilever is designed to organize and store those types of things.
And you really hit the nail on the head with, real estate prices just go up and up and up. And so it's so important to be efficient with the space that you have. So let's start with pallet racks. Explain to me what a pallet rack is and how you optimize for it.
So pallet rack. Yes, let's talk about pallet rack. It's one of my favorite words. A lot of people, there's confusion if you haven't, if you've been to a Costco, that's the easiest way. You see, they're usually green and orange. Home Depot has a lot of them. The ones at Home Depot are just orange. So if you just go in the store, you're just looking for what you're looking for. You don't really see the pallet racks, but they're there. And Home Depot is actually I used to go there when I was first in the business to look, because they have so many ways with all the brackets and ways you can load a pallet rack. I mean, they have ways to arrange things like moldings and boards where it's vertically divided. They've got just individual boxes on there and levels that are, 10, 12, 15 inches apart, like a normal store shelf. And then up above, they've got pallet storage. So a Home Depot is a really great example of a really large variety of ways you could use pallet racking. It's probably 90% of what we do. And you're able to store things, 10, 20. The tallest ones we've done, the rack itself is 42 feet tall. And you can actually put a 6 foot pallet on top of that. So it's a really great way to stack products that you couldn't, most things you can't stack more than 2 or 3 high, and some things you can't stack at all just because the weight or the boxes or it's going to tip over. So pallet rack is kind of the first when someone's moving into a warehouse, they're going to have some form or need for pallet racking.
And are these accessible with a forklift? Like a forklift can get in there?
Yeah. So for example, the Home Depot, one of my favorite things is where someone needs a pallet off the top and they come and block off the aisle and they come in with a forklift. So you can either load it by hand or a forklift. Most companies are kind of a combination of both because a lot in a warehouse, a distribution center, they're pulling a case at a time. A lot of time you think of like a grocery operation, they're not sending pallets of stuff to their stores. They're usually building, it's called a rainbow pallet, where there's multiple different products on one pallet. So one pallet, the grocery store could have, multiple different boxes of canned goods, all the way to toilet paper and stuff like that. So on the lower levels, they call it a pick level because they're picking the orders. It's by hand. And then up above is pallet storage.
I'm showing a video here. So these are as you mentioned, orange and green colors, most of them here.
They're mostly green and orange, blue and orange. One of my favorite projects. We've done them in different color. We have a customer that only uses white racks with blue load beams, and that's kind of neat. You can play with the colors, but green and orange is the standard. And then, like I said, everything Home Depot does, it's all orange, and that's what I don't think people notice it when you go. Unless you're looking for it, you don't really see it in Home Depot because, like I said, you're looking for your paint or your sandpaper or boards or whatever.
Right. All right. So that's pallet racks. So let's talk about pushback racks. These are, I understand that when a pallet is loaded, it pushes the previous pallet back. Explain to me how it works.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about drive-in first.
That's right. Drive-in systems, then pushback. Okay.
And so it was a great question that you asked me is, do you service it with a forklift? And so in distribution, there's a lot of different ways that product comes in and out. And so particularly in the Central Valley of California, there's an industry where, they harvest all the vegetables and everything, and it has to be frozen, put in a warehouse for a long time. Like when they harvest, they don't just ship all that stuff out within a month. It has to be stored. And in environments like that, cold storage, you've got multiple pallets of the same SKU. And a great way to store that. And again, you can't stack these, like some products, like if it's soda, you can just stack it to the ceiling. It's not going to tip over. Even wine, it can be 5, even sometimes people do it 6 pallets high if it's done right, the right kind of packaging. What drive-in allows you to do is that same sort of stacking where it's multiple pallets deep. So it's ideal if a lot of the drive-in systems we do are 6 pallets deep and 4 pallets high. It equates to about a truckload. Most truckloads are about 22 pallets. And so the concept is you can put a whole truckload in there, but it has to move like that. So if you're only moving 1 or 2 pallets at a time, drive-in is not going to be a great solution because you have to take all the pallets out of that system to get to the last one on the bottom. And we've done a lot of drive-in. Part of it's because of California. We're at, like I said, there's a lot of ag, cold storage, but it really works in any environment where you've got multiple pallets of the same SKU and it moves in pallet quantities. I mean, really, you're not going to be pulling individual cases off of a drive-in rack because it would take forever to empty it out. And then pushback rack is the next evolution beyond drive-in rack. So pushback rack takes that same concept, and with drive-in or pushback, you could go 2 deep, you could go 3 deep, 4 deep. So you're obviously going to get more storage if you go 6 deep. But if you look at your data and you see that you're mostly moving 8 to 10 pallets at a time, then it makes more sense to do like a 2 deep, 5 high system or 2 deep, 4 deep. That way you're always moving, emptying those out 100% before you fill it back out. Now pushback, and there's a good video on pushback that I'll share. We'll put it in the show notes. But pushback is a cart system. It can either be carts or conveyor rollers, and it's multi-pallets deep, but each level you can get to those pallets. So say, for example, instead of a 6 deep or 4 high, 6 deep drive-in where you have to move 24 pallets, if it's a 6 deep pushback, you only need to have 6 pallets. So the advantage to that, you can have different SKUs in the same bay, and it just gives you more accessibility. And there's a formula that your space utilization with pushback, it's if you think of with the drive-in, it's either 100% full or it's 100% empty, because you have to empty it to get that last pallet on the floor. So you really only have 50% of your storage, because when it's zero, it's empty. And like I said, if you're turning it really fast, that's not a big deal. With pushback, your utilization goes up to 75%, or it depends on how deep it is, but you can take 6 pallets out and not have to touch the other 18. So it just gives a lot more flexibility for our clients. And a lot of our clients are in the public storage or third-party warehousing industry where they are moving pallets at a time.
So you really need to understand what their usage is, and not just that, but it might be what their clients' usage is. And it might be the case that they don't have the clients yet, or the clients haven't moved in yet. So you're kind of anticipating future usage.
It absolutely is. And so that's the nice thing about pushback. And there's sort of a trend right now. I'm hoping it catches on more, but there's a pallet rack. So going back to the pallet rack design, there is I don't know who invented it, but Raymond Material Handling is one of the good forklift companies. Crown is another one. Somebody invented a double deep reach truck. So you can actually take pallet rack, and instead of just having a single pallet deep, you can have it double deep. So it's the same racks, you just set them up double deep. And because those forklifts are so clever, and a lot of people in our business that do what I do, they also sell forklifts. So we don't. We specialize in just the systems, and then we usually partner with a forklift company for our clients. But they have these great lifts, so a lot of the facilities they design, they just did it with a double deep. It's like, hey, we've got this great piece of equipment. You're getting twice the density that you would with single deep. And so we just helped a client recently in the Midwest in a cold storage environment where they had 13,000 pallets stored in a double deep racking system. And we took it out and replaced it with 5 deep pushback. So what they got is similar turns. So with the 2 deep, you really have to turn 2 pallets at a time. With the 5 deep, you have to turn 5 pallets at a time. But that 5 deep system yielded them an additional 6,000 pallet positions. And their revenue is based on pallet positions of storage.
Right.
And then the other thing, in a freezer environment, the more full that freezer is, the easier it is to keep the temperature down, because there's less air to cool off.
So their cooling costs go down also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. The energy cost goes down. So it was a real, for that client, I think it was a year to 18-month payback on that investment. And then now you've got 6,000 spots you can sell every year after that as a plus. So we're seeing, like I said, there's a lot of 2 deep reach systems out there, because like I said, it's a great lift, and it's just kind of a simple way if you just want to optimize your operation. So that's a great place to start. But if somebody has a facility that either has single deep racking or double deep, if you have single deep racking, you might want to go to double deep reach or pushback. And we're involved in a lot of drive-in and pushback products, and so we stock quite a bit of that, which most people in our industry don't, because the system, pallet rack's pretty simple. It's uprights, beams, and either pallet supports or some kind of decking. It gets a lot trickier with the drive-in, just because there's more components, and the way it goes together, the way it's engineered is a little more technical. And then the pushback is even more, because it's a nested cart system that, on a 6 deep system, there's 5 carts, and they nest together, and they're designed to just go back one at a time. And again, we'll put that video in the show notes. It's probably, I think it's a 9-minute video. I know some people only have 2-minute 2-minute attention span, but if you're running a DC and you don't have if you've either got drive-in or regular rack, you'll want to look at this pushback video because it's a pretty simple way. And the biggest project we did was 42 feet tall. So I'm not a good lift truck driver, but I can't imagine what that's like in a 0 degree freezer.
Oh
Have a
yeah.
pallet 42 feet in the air.
Oh
You
yeah.
have to have 6 deep, 5 deep, 4 deep, and 3 deep in that warehouse. So
I'm also picturing the guys who have to install this stuff. It's not like you can turn off the freezer. So they're in the freezer for hours and hours, like installing this stuff in some kind of heavy parka, I imagine.
it's another interesting thing about our business. A lot of what we do is in freezers, and it's another interesting. This is a side note. It's important. The equipment that we rent to do that. So you have to have a scissor lift that'll go that tall, and a lot of equipment because of the oils they use in the hydraulic system,
Oh,
it
can't
doesn't
work.
work in the cold
Oh,
because it
okay.
gets cold in it. So they have to use hydraulic fluid that doesn't. Most things, anything except for water, shrinks when you freeze it,
Yeah.
and so you got to have specialized equipment to work.
Interesting. Interesting. And I also want to ask you about uh, you've been doing this for so many years. You must be able to walk into a warehouse and look around and be like, "Oh, you are missing out on so much opportunity here, over here, over here, over here. I can see all these different spots where you can get more, opportunity out of the space that you have."
So really, I do. It's true, and most people are looking for ways to operate in less space. So we have a customer right now that they're going to sign a lease on a larger building in 3 months. And the permitting and temporary occupancy and all that's going to take 3 months, and they need an interim storage, and they're kind of shrinking their footprint. So we're able to, the little value engineering and design, use their existing stuff, reconfigure it. I think we'll probably cut their footprint in half, and it's temporary, so it's not going to be the greatest, because the thing is, when you store stuff more, when you get more density, you have less selectivity. So the example of like the drive-in racks, you've got to touch 24 pallets to get to the last one, but then you're storing 24 pallets in the space where you could probably store 8 or 10 with
Mhm.
conventional racking system. So yeah, I can look in, but we have to partner with our clients too, because the key part is that volume and the turns. There's some different words that people look for it, and some customers have a really good handle on what their turns are, but a lot of our clients don't. And so I spend time with them and getting, if they don't know the answers, there usually is somebody in the organization who has the answer. Uh, how far are we, how fast are we going? So we'll use that same client as an example. They're in the wine distribution business, and they're going into a smaller space. Well, when I walked their existing space, I noticed a lot of the pallets, it wasn't a full pallet. And so I said, what's your, when you look at your product profile, what is most of what you have? And he said, well, it's mostly less than 20 cases. So less than 20 cases of the same SKU. And in the wine business, that's about a half a pallet. And I said, so when we set up your new place, we're going to have a lot of half pallet locations instead of full pallet, because you'll be able to fit twice as much in there. And then we also created, going back to the Home Depot example, where you got shelves that are just 10, 12, 15 inches apart, that they can just put one case and 3 cases deep. So if they have a lot of SKUs that they only have 3 or 4 cases, we can,
You design it differently from the get-go then. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
just reminded myself of another one where we put shelving in. I had a client that I've known for 20 something years. He's been with 9 different companies, but he's really smart. And he's one of the guys that can go to a company, he'll find out right away. And it was a smaller project, but this is a warehouse. They probably had 60 pallet positions available in their warehouse. It was about 3 truckloads. But it was all, they were rainbow pallets. It was one case of this, one case of that, a large format bottle. And so anytime they needed to pull an order, they'd have to get a pallet down and then go through that whole pallet and find the order and then put it back. So at first glance, it looks like, well, they got a lot of stuff into a little bit of space. Well, with Stan, this guy's name is Stan. I'll have to give Stan a shout out. He looked at the numbers and said, hey, we can fit all 60 of these pallets on the lower level on shelving with, again, 10 to 12 to 15 inches apart. And I was amazed. I had to go in there and look at it at the end, kind of do a final inspection. I looked, and all those 60 pallets, it was gone.
Hmm.
So they're actually bringing in another client that's more half pallet, full pallet. So they basically gain their whole warehouse back. And the even better news is when you pull an order, now you just go through and everything's organized. And if you've got a case of something or 3 cases or 2 cases, it's all right there. So,
All right, let's move on to case flow shelving. Case flow shelving. What is that? How does that fit into this system here?
so case flow there's a great segue from that story with Stan to the case flow. So case flow is similar to the pushback in that you're using gravity, but it is a first in, first out. So case flow is like a miniature conveyor that you can set a box on, and you put it in the back of the racking, and it'll flow through to the front.
Hmm.
And so with storage densities, it's kind of the same thing. You look at just using wine industry, because I'm in the Napa Valley. I love using wine as an example. And it's kind of it's a 12-inch by 12-inch box, and everybody loves to talk about wine. I love to drink wine. But in a bay where you could just imagine you could have 2 pallets or 4 half pallets, you can have 28 case flow locations. So with that conveyor, you just have a product that rolls, it's first in, first out, and you put it in the back, unload it from the front, but you can go about 7 across and 4 high. And so in that really limited space, you can fit a lot of stuff. And so it's great. The first in, first out is nice because one of the things, if you get 3 or 4 cases deep and somebody keeps pulling the front case and putting one in front of it, and you're not always completely emptying out, that one that's in the back
just stays there. Yeah.
And it happens. You'd be surprised when inventory gets lost. And then it's also, when you're running a warehouse, the bigger operation, when the gravity pulls it to the front, you can see if there's a box. You can visually look at it. If it's in the back on a pallet rack, you kind of have to peek and look, just see what's back there. So the case flow, and then you can have everything really closer together because you're not having to reach in so far. So
it's even your labor costs can go down because they're not reaching into the back to try and pull something out. It just comes up to the front.
Yeah, and the key to knowing, what you want to put in case flow is, again, having that 8 cases. Like, how fast are we turning 8 cases? You really don't want to be. There's a lot of different ways people use it. It would make sense if you were having to recharge it every day.
Yeah.
But some of our clients do. So some people will actually use a case flow system like that. They know their orders are coming ahead of time, so they'll break it all down into the case flow, because usually clients, they have time the day before or at night when you're doing replenishment, you've got time. But when you're pulling the orders, you're kind of under the gun because the FedEx truck's going to be there. Golden State Overnight's going to be there. So they'll use the case flow to organize everything and get it all ready. And then that way, when the order picker, they can just come by and pull their order without having to grab pallets from up above or look for stuff.
All right, we're up to rack-supported mezzanines. What are rack-supported mezzanines?
So rack-supported mezzanine is one of the things I love, because a lot of people don't even know this is possible. And I'll get some links to some pictures in show notes. But it's a racking system, and you put a floor in between them, where it's called a catwalk. So you could have we just did one for Patagonia. And what they originally had asked us for, and this is something we do differently. Most places, they call you and say, "Hey, I need 100 uprights and 800 beams." So they'll just quote it. Like, I'll usually stop and say, "Well, what business are you in? How are you doing it now?" A lot of questions. Well, Patagonia came to us, and somebody had seen, and they're in a lot of, and then we weren't scheduled to talk about this, but mobile aisle racking. So if you ever went to, that's a great rack supported mezzanine page. But they asked me for mobile aisle shelving. So there's a type of shelving that you can have a mobile aisle. It's usually in the back of a shoe store. It's in retail, like where space is really at a premium. But you can basically move the shelf. You just have one aisle. And so if you need to get to a shelf, there's usually like a crank system. Some of them are hydraulic, some of them are manual. And so they wanted to put this 8-foot tall mobile aisle shelving system for their catalog samples. So it's not a true warehouse where things are going in and out. It's a catalog. They need to take a picture of a jacket. Like, everything that Patagonia ever made is in there. And so if they want a picture of it to do something.
Like the archives.
Yeah, it's the archive. And it was a really cool project just because Patagonia is such a neat.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I looked at it and I was thinking for the cost, and they had this really tall bill, it was like 24 feet tall. And I was thinking, well, if you build this mobile aisle system, first of all, it's more expensive than a two-tier racking system or rack supported mezzanine. If you do this, when you run out of space in the future, you're gonna have to come and build a mezzanine over the top of the structure, and that's going to cost even more.
Mhm.
So the rack supported it was the perfect solution for them because it was, instead of being 8 feet tall, it was 20 feet tall with a floor in between. And so there's a stairway, and there's basically upstairs, there's a hallway between the racks, and you can store things up there, and you can put the stuff that you know that you're going to need more frequently down below. The stuff that you know you're not going to have to get to, you can put it up top. And it's a solution that works really well. Where you see those are in like an automotive dealership where they have a lot of different parts, uh, any kind of parts counter, like one of our plumbing distributors, electrical distributors, somebody that has a lot of small little parts and pieces. We've even built them for maintenance shops where they've just got to keep a certain amount of stuff on hand. And it's just a great way to use the space. I mean, it's really like, to build a mezzanine is probably half the cost to build a rack supported mezzanine.
Mhm.
And then it includes the shelving below and the shelving above.
Mhm.
So you're building the structure that's 20 feet tall, and it's just got a stairway with a catwalk, and they're pretty cool looking.
Yeah. All right. Last one, cantilever racks. So they use horizontal arms that extend from vertical columns. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, so cantilever rack is uh is a little bit different. It's more, you usually see them outside, although I'm thinking the last few ones we did were inside, but it's for lumber industry. So think of very heavy product, things that are longer, 8, 10, 12 feet. And cantilever racks are designed to take a lot of weight, because like a unit of lumber is like 5,000 pounds. It's probably going to be distributed over 3 arms. Home Depot is another great place to look at cantilever racks. So if you go in the lumber department at Home Depot, they're going to have cantilever racks. And there's a lot of different design uh, criteria for cantilever racks depending on your weight, and what you're storing is how far apart. So you could have those, if you go to Home Depot, they use 32 inches, which is pretty close. So it costs a lot more to put them. They could make them 4 feet apart and still carry their loads, but they put them closer together, because now if they're 32 inches apart, it doesn't matter. You could put something 5 foot long, 8 foot long, 20 feet long, and you're going to have, your capacity is going to be fine, because it's based on, each arm is probably rated for 2,000 pounds.
Hmm.
So if you got a 5,000 pound unit, you need to make sure that there's 3 arms under there. So if you did the spacing wrong, if they were 4 feet apart, there would only be 2 arms, and you could potentially overload it. But you see cantilever in lumber industry. We've got contractors that supply the plumbing, so like pipe, copper pipe. You use only see with ABS, just because you can stack. That's the thing. The racking comes in if you have product that you would just stack it up if you could, but you can't. Some pipes you just can't stack. And then if you want to have you want to have access to different SKUs, the cantilever is a great way to organize it. Cabinet shops are real opportunity, because a lot of them don't have a cantilever racking system. And what happens in that, like we were talking about the shelf where that box gets stuck in the back, plywood and the stuff they use in cabinetry is really expensive stuff. And, a lot of people end up ordering stuff that they already have, because they don't know they have it, because it's in a stack somewhere in the back. Where cantilever racks, you can organize it, and you can get it up. You're using the vertical space, which that's a lot of, I go in, if somebody doesn't have racking and I look at that building, that's for me, I automatically go, what's all this space up
Okay.
here?
Yeah.
How can we use it? And so cantilever is it's not as common. There was a run on cantilever uh, when the building industry is really booming and people are building a lot of buildings and there's a lot of supply. Cantilever racks come into demand, and
Mhm.
it's really. I'm actually working on a few projects now, so maybe that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's an interesting arbiter of the economy. All
It
right.
really, yeah, it is.
All right, Mark, last question. So if I'm a business, I'm designing a warehouse from scratch today. In addition to watching this video, how should they think about choosing the right racking system from the beginning?
Well, they should call us.
Give you a call, yeah.
So it's a great question. So the lift equip. So how they're doing it now? I mean, I really take a look at how. That's really one of the questions I ask my customers too. Is how are you guys doing it now? What works and what doesn't? Another a trip to Home Depot, which I said that on the video, but another good thing is your competitors and suppliers. So whatever business you're in, you've got you're buying your product from somewhere, and so how are they storing it? And that's going to be different for them because they're probably shipping in pallet quantities and you're shipping in individual. But still, there'll be some generalizations about how they're storing it, and then competition. How are other companies doing that? And here's my favorite. So I used to, and we're getting back into this. I used to host warehouse tours with a group called Warehouse Education and Research Council, and we would find a warehouse that was doing something automation, conveyor, something unique. And we've toured Amazon's. We toured Patagonia's facility in Reno, their distribution center. But to get ideas, that's another. Even if it's not your competitors of your supplier, visit any warehouse where they're storing things and see how they're doing it there, because it's amazing how many of these systems or ideas or ways of storing things it transfers across a lot of industries and the stuff especially 3PLs. I mean, if you could get to 2 or 3PL and see how they're doing it, because and it's funny, 3PL. I'm getting careful about this language. Some people are looking at 3PL as managing multiple trucking companies because it's third party logistics. But what I mean by 3PL is like a public warehouse where somebody who's storing multiple different clients in a warehouse, and however they're doing it, they're going to be doing it. My friend Chris Murphy, he's the public warehouse. They probably have they have all of these systems. I don't think they have a rack supported mezzanine. They probably need one for their archive record storage.
That's another the video.
What's that?
You got to send him this video. He'll change his mind.
Yeah. Well, so he's going to Manifest. So that's another thing you could do. You could attend industry events. And really, that's how I've learned, touring other warehouses, looking at my competitors, and and call us and have your suppliers call us. That's one of the things. We've gotten a lot of referrals that if we're doing business, we get introduced to clients and then we get introduced to suppliers and sometimes even competitors.
And speaking of that, so just to wrap things up, specialracks.com is the website. Your email, markhiddleson@aol.com, and the phone number is 707-732-3892. You also, of course, you can check out the podcast, Tao Pizza, and also contact you on LinkedIn. Anywhere else people should go to connect with you?
We're on Instagram. Rackman Napa is my Instagram handle, and I'm super active on Instagram, but I think it's one of those things that we need to be there for the long term. So the best way I would say is LinkedIn, or send me an email. That AOL email is my personal email that I only give it out to podcast guests now. But
great.
A legacy email.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, John. This has been awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.